Hey, it's Vanessa from CraftyGemini.com, and I post weekly crafting and cooking videos here on YouTube. This week I'm back with a sewing tutorial where I'm going to teach you all how to make this adorable little pillowcase with only 3 seams. The measurements I give you in this tutorial are made to fit a regular size or standard size pillow, which usually measure around 20 inches by 26 inches. And you can always adjust the measurements to fit larger pillows. Complete with French seams, everything on the inside, all the seams are completely concealed, very clean and professional looking, and you don't even need a serger. Now let's start with the supplies we'll need and jump right into making our pillowcase. For the body of the pillowcase, you want to get 24 inches by the width of the fabric, meaning however it comes off the bolt when you buy it in the fabric store. Then for the cuff part, we're going to need 12 inches by the width of the fabric. And then for the little accent piece, it'll be 2 inches by the width of the fabric. First thing you want to do is take your little accent strip and fold it in half lengthwise and give it a good press with your iron. Now we just need to layer our body of our fabric piece, which we're going to open, right? I have it just like it came off the bolt here. So you're going to open it on the selvages and lay it lengthwise right in front of you. You can see the selvages are on the left and on the right. That's where they should be. We haven't cut them off either. Now, you want to take your little accent piece and put it with the raw side, the raw edge side, touching the top raw edge of the bigger piece that you have in front of you. I like to place a pin here just to hold it in place and just stretch it across. We're not worried about any selvages right now, okay? We'll trim that once we're done sewing this. Now we take our cuff with the pretty side of the fabric facing down, and we're going to add this now to our little sandwich we have going on here. And you're going to again match that raw edge with the top raw edge of the other 2 fabrics as well. Now I want you to pin this in place, but notice I'm putting the pins parallel to that edge. You don't want to put them going the other way perpendicular. You want them to be going side by side instead of going up and down. Now I flip the cuff fabric up to expose the pretty side of that pink. I roll under the body of the pillow, roll it up into a little tube. Then you can flip the cuff back over it, and we're going to grab the whole thing, making sure to grip what's inside. I'm going to flip it and then tuck it back again. And then that top raw edge now that we can see there of the other side of the pink fabric, I'm going to pin it in place as well. Let me show you guys again. You see here, after we pinned that, we flip it up. We rolled the body fabric all the way up. Then you flip this back down, grab everything, including the tube that's inside that we rolled, flip it, and then tuck it back. And now what we're going to do is line up those raw edges along with the one that we now have under there. And I want you to just line up the fabric, then remove the pin you had there previously, and then run it through the other way through all the fabrics you have now. So just line everything up, pull out the previous pin, and then repin it, grabbing that last fabric we just added. And I want you to put them now perpendicular to the edge of the fabric, because this is how we place our pins so we can sew and pull the pins as we go. You're going to sew from the top all the way down to the bottom, making sure to use just a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Don't worry about any off edges. We'll trim all that later. Just remove your pins as you go and continue to sew using that 1/4 inch seam allowance down the entire edge. Once that seam is sewn, you'll end up with a little tube that looks like this. Now you want to reach into that hole and pull out the body fabric of the pillowcase and just keep tugging it until you have the entire thing flipped right side out. Then you'll see that you can look in on one of the sides of the openings and all of our seams are concealed in there. So you have no raw seams exposed and everything on the front looks nice and neat. You want to give it a good press with your iron. I'll show you here the little accent piece. You can see there should be no raw edges creeping out if you sewed that seam correctly. Then when we flip it over, you see there's no seam there either. So everything is nice and clean looking. Now we can address these uneven edges. You can see here the different widths of the fabric. Some were shorter than the other. So I fold it in half, and now you just want to scoot your fabric in enough so that it's cutting away that selvage and evening everything out. Line up one of the lines in your ruler with the folded line, and then just slice it right off. You can see I'm removing away excess fabric and some of the selvage, and then you get a nice clean piece. You want to flip your fabric over and repeat that on the other end as well. Now you want to fold the entire piece in half lengthwise, or the way it would look once the pillowcase is complete. Now we're going to get ready to pin this in place to sew, but I want you guys to make sure that you're matching up that little point right there where the accent piece meets the cuff. When we sew this, we want it to look like one continuous band all the way around the pillowcase. So you want to match those ends up and place a pin right there to make sure when you're sewing it, you make it perfect. Now we can pin the rest of that long edge, and you're going to pin alongside the long edge and then the other opening, which is one of the short ends on the pillowcase. After you've pinned down both sides, you want to go to your sewing machine and you're going to use just a 1/4 inch seam allowance to sew these. You might think you're doing it backwards, but trust me, we're doing a French seam here, and this is how we have to do it. So start up top, make sure that you're back stitching here, and then continue down both sides and just pivot about a 1/4 inch away from the bottom. Stop with the needle down into the fabric, lift your presser foot up, and then you can turn the fabric and then put the presser foot back down and continue sewing. Remember to back stitch at the end as well. Now on the seams that we just created, okay, that one L-shaped seam that you made, you want to trim down a little bit of the seam allowance. Just snip about 1/8 of an inch or so is all I'm going to do here. And the reason we're doing that is because we're going to flip the fabric back to finish the French seam, and we want to make sure we don't have any of those little stray fabric threads creeping through our seam. So finish on the other side as well, cut that down, and now you're going to turn your entire piece inside out. So we're going to flip the pillowcase inside out, give it a nice good press with your iron to get all those seams nice and flat. And then you can see here where the seam that we sewed was, I like to roll it in between my fingers just to make sure that that excess fabric comes out and I have everything flat. Now you're going to go back and sew using the edge of your presser foot as your guide, right back down the exact same seam that we just sewed. If you look inside, that's going to conceal that once we sew that seam down, and that's a French seam. Start at the top using the edge of your presser foot as your guide, back stitch at the beginning and at the ends, and sew all the way down the long side and across that short side as well. And that's all there was to sewing a really cute pillowcase. You can see where we matched up the accent piece, everything looks perfect. And if you look inside, you have no exposed or raw edges for seams. Everything is nice and enclosed and very clean and professional looking. Now that you've finished your pillowcase, you can see how quick and easy it whips up. And once you get the hang of rolling everything up and pinning it, it whips together in a flash. Remember to upload your pictures of your completed pillowcases to our Facebook page. I always love to see what you guys are out there making from the TheCraftyGemini tutorials. And if you like what you see, remember to subscribe to my channel by clicking right there.